And we're live. Welcome to Superbike Genius, and I'm on with AttackYamaha's Superbike Genius.
Oh,
And
hey, I'm just
what are you
watching
doing?
watching Trump rally.
Of course, I can, of
I'll turn it
course.
off.
You're watching a rally on your phone. That's great.
Well, what am I gonna do? Talk to you? You're pretty boring.
I'm boring. Really? I'm breaking rule number 3, dude. Man, I put
Well,
that
you're
word to believe.
well, I don't think you're woke, so that's okay.
No, I'm awake.
Awake.
I'm
I'm
awake.
barely awake.
Yeah, you guys just came off that COTA weekend, and I'm rocking the Podium Club shirt because they're a support of the team, and
Yeah,
they
that's our
let us come test on your way to COTA.
that's our official test track.
Yeah,
Yeah, they treat us good. So yeah,
yeah,
we had a heat wave here in California, at least Southern California for sure, and man, the temperature was hot in the shop. Yeah, in Huntington Beach, we're not used to anything over 75. So it was
yeah.
like 100 and something inside the shop. So it got us ready for Arizona, which was 106 and dusty and dirty. And so yeah, John was kind of apologetic for I don't know why. We got on the track at a short notice, did some laps with Chavi just to get him a little bit
Right.
used to all the controls and all the buttons and all the whistles on the motorcycle.
Yeah, put his
But
foot pegs in the right spot, that kind of shit.
yeah, I mean, he didn't really adjust much until we got to COTA.
Mm.
Then he wanted a little more adjustment, but yeah, I mean, he's still trying to get his head around the motorcycle, and I think the biggest thing with him is trust.
Yeah,
They're like, how hard can he run that motorcycle? So maybe that Suzuki didn't instill a whole lot of trust as far as electronics goes, but he was using a lot of rear brake in Arizona, trying to compensate for wheelies when we have a very good wheelie control system,
right.
and also a lot of rear brake on the exits of corners. But we have a very good track control system, so I think he just needs a little more time to gain that trust. And he continued that at COTA, which ended up hurting him a bit on acceleration. From Marshall looking at it and me looking at it, and I mean it's pretty evident he was overusing the rear brake. So when we did the whole rear brake test thing on the dyno, we were able to kind of equate how much one bar of brake pressure is to horsepower. And it's very close to 1 horsepower. So if you hold the rear brake under acceleration for, let's say, 20 bar, you're losing about 20 horsepower. If you
Oh,
hold it for a certain amount of time, that number grows. So as the brake pad gets hotter, you end up losing more and more and more rear wheel torque. Yeah, so that's something I think he needs to maybe get around, or we need to adjust the bike differently for him so he can use the brake the way he wants and not so much other stuff. I don't know if that's the fastest way around the racetrack though.
hey, so Richard, I can hear you just fine. But Martin's Life in the Hangar says that your audio is suffering.
All right.
So I don't know.
Okay.
Like, do you wanna turn up your mic volume a tiny bit?
Yeah, I can turn it up. Let me see
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
How's
So
that?
yeah, I mean it's louder. Comment
Maybe.
below if you guys think he's making some adjustments. I know he's got a microphone set up over there now, and
Yeah. How's that?
well, it's quite a bit louder. You know,
How does Mike say?
yeah, yeah. Martin's Life in the Hangar. How's it going now? Yeah, they
Hi,
say
Martin.
he's. Yeah, you sound. Oh, yeah. Eric Davis says it sounds like you.
am I yelling at him?
You making him do push-ups in the paddock?
No, I usually spray him with contact cleaner when he acts up.
Oh, I mean, rightfully so, right?
Not nice, but we're working our way there.
Okay, okay, seems legit.
It's a tough team.
So looking at the test and watching Xavi go around, like he does that methodical, like creep into it, build his confidence, and then he goes, and the dude looked like he was ripping. So, um, I don't understand like what you're saying. Like he seemed pretty stoked on the bike at Podium Club.
There was only one racer to race against at Podium Club.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah,
there's
so then
that.
you get into a situation where you have a number of guys who've been riding that bike all year or multiple years.
Yeah.
Like Cameron, this is his third year, right?
Right.
Cameron Beaubier.
Mm-hmm.
Is it his third year? I think it is. Yeah.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Or is it the second year? I
Second,
don't know.
maybe.
Maybe
It all
second year.
blends
But
in.
anyway,
It all
so
blends together.
yeah, exactly. Every year it starts to blend into the next one, and then you have Heron, who's been riding his bike a couple of years, and Fong's on his second year. So you can start going down the SDK is doing really good. I mean, that's his first year on the bike, and he knows all the racetracks, and he hasn't ridden a Superbike in competition before, so he's doing exceptional. And so everyone I think is at the top of their game, uninjured.
Right.
And so there's a lot more to push when you're trying to find that last little bit.
Right.
And trying to find a combination that makes them comfortable enough to push.
Yeah.
So all those things are every little bit will push you back just a little bit. And all you need is, especially on a big racetrack like that, a little bit here, a little bit there, a couple tenths in every, when you have as many corners you have at COTA, a tenth here, 10th there, it comes out to about a second and a half, by the time you add it all up.
Right.
Yeah. So, we just never seem to find that that setting that he likes the most. So he can push really hard. And you can see it with his riding. He was riding, I think, tentative in a lot of places, using a lot of, like I said, a lot of rear brake. Right. And as a power control, when we have Marshall who can control the torque every which way that is necessary to combat spin. And actually the spin was not that high relative to what we had before. So I think there's still a little bit of comfort to build up to before you can actually steer with the rear and do all the things the bike is capable of doing.
Right. I mean, it just looked like, there was a couple times where Chavi'd get going and it would be, he'd be in like top 5-ish. Mm-hmm. And then, we're not going to do like a recap. That's lame. But,
the bikes start real well, as far as the launch goes. Cameron was able to get up in the races all the way up to the pretty good positions a couple times. And he ran off and other various things happened. And so back to the beginning, like I said, I think it's going to take some time for Chavi. I think he'll do better in New Jersey. Okay. Now that he's got a weekend on the bike, understands the competition, understands what he has to do, and maybe understands the bike a little better. Yeah. So I think we'll have a little better time at New Jersey versus COTA. And with Cameron, he's still dealing with that torn meniscus of his that he's going to have to get some surgery on after the season's up.
Oh man!
So he injured himself before Ohio training, running or something, and then he dealt with it in Ohio. And then he had a couple of big crashes there, which may have added to that. You can't have a big crash with a bad knee and make it worse, right? And then first day he spent quite a bit of time getting sick. I think he only did a few laps in the first session. He threw up in his helmet.
Heat or something?
I don't know what he's done with his diet, but he was taking a bunch of Aleve and Tylenol and just kept throwing up. He'd go out there and get a little bit of motion sickness or something. He was just puking in the helmet, and then he would do a couple laps, come in and frustrated, and then he was just sick the whole time. And all the way up until race one, I think he got a little sick in race one. He was having a good run. Then he got a little sick and thought he was going to throw up, so he kind of slowed down for a lap and then went again. Unfortunately, other guys passed him in that process. So I think he was racing with, who was he racing with time? Escalante and Chavi and Posh, I think. And so we're kind of in an area where we were not normally at.
Right.
But considering that we had one guy a little injured and a new guy, kind of expected not to get a great result.
Yeah. That just sucks, you like that guy, Cam Peterson's such a good dude, and to see like he's just been getting kicked in the balls all year. It's always something with him.
Last couple of years, right?
Right.
I mean, he just got off that hand surgery where they took all that bone out of his wrist. Now his wrist is functioning pretty good.
Right.
Now he's got a knee, his knee issue, and it kind of sucks not seeing him at his best I think Laguna he was in pretty decent shape at Laguna. He's having a good go at Laguna. And then we had that clutch failure on the start, and he wasn't able to go with Cambobier.
Right.
Then he had to pull in. So I think Laguna was the last time he had a really good run.
Yeah.
But he was on the podium regularly. He's won 3 this year so far.
Yeah.
So I know he's very capable. It's just these injuries keep hindering him.
Yeah, and then I did see that that the 45 bike was in the pits in qualifying too, and I was like, I was trying to avoid texting you or anything. I was like, not gonna.
Yeah, it wasn't a great weekend with regards to anything, but that was the engine that he had crashed put in the fence at on Thursday at Ohio, and so we took that engine and we inspected it, put on the dyno, but there's a little oil pipe thing inside the engine that failed, and so it starved the engine oil, unfortunately.
That sucks.
Yeah, so it could have been anything with the kinetic energy of the bike hitting the fence. I mean, it tore the bike in half, ripped the swing arm in half, so there's a lot of energy there, and sometimes the inspection just doesn't tell you all of it until you get a chance to put that thing through all the vibration again.
Yeah, and he wasn't really riding a lot on the first day, right? So
yeah, first day he was, like I said, he was sick. Most of the day, he only did maybe 4 or 5 laps per session, flyer wise, and then he was feeling a little bit better, and the next day, and then that's when we only did a couple laps on that, and then we went into race 1.
So I'm curious, for those people watching, I'm curious, if there was a difference mile an hour on the bikes from this year to last year down the back straightaway.
No, not really. I think I think Cameron went 187. This year he did a lot of 82s, 83s, and then an 87 probably in the draft. I think some of the other guys went like 190, 191. I think JD Beach was about the fastest. He's so small. So him in the draft, I think it was in the low 90s. So I think our speed was okay.
Yeah.
Where we're lacking compared to the inline bikes, I mean the non-odd fire bikes, other than the Ducati, like the BMWs, I think we're lacking like in the middle gears and acceleration, and that could have something to do with the wings. The wings help the wheelie control, and we have some wheelie control active, so we're losing some speed with that. When it drops down, you come out of that turn 11, and the track drops away, so we have quite a bit of intervention there. Like Chavi's standing on the rear brake, coming out of there, so he's losing some speed before he can get going. Right. And then you end up losing a little bit of distance. But the very, very top, if we could close up that little gap there, then I think we'll be okay. And we come up with a few more horsepower as far as the engine goes. But speed-wise, from last year, this year, no real change. We're just a bit faster this year.
Yeah, it seems like that. And then another curious thing I have is, which of the riders had the highest brake pressure, and what was the brake pressure? Was it? I know the brake pressure is lower now with the calipers that you have, but I'm always curious when the rider goes from 6th gear down to 1st gear.
Yeah, that's not an area where you see a whole lot of brake pressure.
Really?
I think because it's so easy with all that kinetic energy on the bike that anything you do with the front wants to pick the rear up. So you're always fighting how much the bike rolls over and picks the rear tire up. So you kind of roll into that area as far as the brake pressure goes. I think the area where you see the most brake pressure is going to turn 1, because you hit that face and you bottom the forks, and you can pull the brake really hard going up in there, and then you release. Yeah. So if anybody had, it was definitely Cameron had the higher brake pressure. He trusts the bike a little more. And he's used to, and he's always been a hard braker. He always brakes a bit harder than even Jake does.
Right.
And Chavi was kind of rolling into the corners, like rolling into the brakes, not really a big spike in pressure.
Interesting. I just curious about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's usually the way it goes there.
And then I saw, I have some more questions about, maybe you've got some data and stuff to share, but let's get to some of the comments, because we're getting quite a few comments early. And actually, before the show, I had some comments from one of the Facebook groups, the Moto America fans and racers, And Dwayne Delperding wants to know, how many seasons will you guys be able to run the R1?
Well, they just released a new version today, right?
Yeah, I guess we're getting wings, right?
Yeah, they have some wings. They have a few other doodads on the bike itself, and calipers and things like
Brembo
that.
calipers, yeah.
Yeah, KYB suspension, Brembo calipers. So yeah, they did some upgrades to it. It should be another fun bike to ride. I think the wings will help. Obviously, they're there for a reason. You know, everybody we race against has wings.
Well,
pretty
look
much
cool.
the front runners.
Hello, it's because they look cool, right?
Some people don't think it looks cool having wings on a bike, but they do serve a purpose. And so it looks very, very much like the MotoGP bike.
Right.
You know, I had no idea what it was going to look like, and until they came, I knew it was going to get wings, you know, months ago, as far as upgrades. And there were some other upgrades that were proposed, and some made it, some didn't. And yeah, so the wings will definitely be a plus. And like I said, maybe we could close the gap on the acceleration in those middle gears where our wheelie control sometimes is a little overly intrusive.
And then the other questions are both from Rich Grabowski. And both of them are kind of asking about Jake, but you know, are Jake and Cam signed for next year, number one? And then number two, Rich wants to know if Jake's going to be at Jersey to hang out or autograph.
I don't know. I think Jake's going to have, I heard, his arm done. I think it's going to be a little more than just what I heard, more than just injections.
Oh yeah,
I think it's going to be some actual cutting involved, is what I heard, but that's only secondhand info.
Is he going to do that fly to Spain shit?
I don't think so. I think he's going to stick with a doctor that's been working on it.
Okay.
Work through the problems. I mean, I don't know. I've heard all kinds of things, like maybe it's not necessarily in the wrist and the arm. Maybe they're falling asleep, things in the neck. Kind of odd. Yeah. I slept on my hand yesterday, and I woke up with things stinging. You know, and I was thinking, man, is this what Jake's going through? I mean, I literally couldn't even grip a cup of water. You know, and so. I don't know if he's going to be in New Jersey. I don't think so. If anybody watched the Yamaha video on that new R1,
yeah.
I saw it on YouTube. I didn't even know he was doing it. I saw it on YouTube. Oh. I see the guy riding. I go, that's Jake riding that bike, because you get so used to looking at him.
You're right.
Right. His style, his tuck, you know, how he hangs off the bike. And I go, oh, that's Jake. And then they had some shot of him, you know, putting his helmet on as he gets on the bike. I go, oh, okay. Well, first of all, I saw the bike going in turn one at COTA. I go, that's COTA. I go, when did they film that? And it was like, I think it was about the week before. I didn't even know that they were doing it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they kept that thing kind of hush. Other than I knew what some of the components were going to be. The release date, I thought, was going to be next week or the week after. So I think the World Superbike team is probably going to be, now that they've released that, we'll be using the wings at the next World Superbike round.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah, so now that they've released the bike, it's all wide open, and you can talk about it, you know. So I think they got the okay to use the 2025 version of the bike for a World Superbike. That's obviously they've been struggling a bit.
I mean, I saw Johnny Ray is out for this week.
Yeah, for this race, and so Top
Rack too. I haven't heard if Bautista is out, but
man, how crazy is that? Like the top guys or whoever shows up to ride. It's kind of like our deal, right? Is like survival of the most consistent, and Harry seems to have been the guy that hung in there, and he's been going better and better at the end. But you know, Bobier had some misfortune, and our guys have some misfortune. And Bobby's been pretty consistent.
Yeah, he's had some misfortune though. I mean, he's
been injured.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's been injured, but I know he's destroyed some bikes and
well, that's a different kind of.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
well, that's a different kind of misfortune. But you know, I'm talking about injuries.
Yeah,
keep you from riding.
Yeah, I mean, Top Rack was
if you race and you crash, then that's kind of racing, right?
Yeah.
But if you can't even race, or you have to barely hang on, you're really not racing.
Yeah.
You know, so we've had quite a bit, and like I said, Cameron Bobier, he had some stuff he had to go through too at the beginning of the season, and so yeah, Heron was there, staying healthy and getting some good points, and at the end coming on strong, and I think he's gonna pull this off. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, say what you will about the dude. Like has been riding pretty well, but dude,
I've said a lot about the dude.
The Fast by Farachi livery and all the kit and everything and the
Yeah,
crew, that
yeah,
I was like, holy shit, dude. Where's Troy
yeah,
Corsi?
the FBF stuff. Yeah, I noticed that. And Raldo's can't be there's no nicer guy in the paddock.
Oh, like
Other than Jake. Well, there's a lot of nice people in the paddock. I mean,
yeah,
Cameron Beaubier is a really nice guy. Raldo's. I mean, Jake's a really nice guy. I mean, there's a lot of really good people. Tom Halverson's a really nice guy.
yeah,
So the paddock I think is got quite a few good people in it.
yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, Farachi. Every time I see him, I try to make sure to shake that dude's hand because I mean,
Yeah, it's funny because when we showed up to COTA, I saw the HSBK guys, like setting up, and I saw Simone there and the other Italian dude. I can't remember what his name is. And I walk up to them and I'm like, "Congratulations on your championship! Congratulations to the whole garage on your championship!" And they're all, "Stop saying that. That's bad luck." I go, "No, really," because Lee used to be with our team, is now with Beaubier on the Tytler's team.
yeah.
He said, "Hey man, you need to go over and congratulate." I saw him at the hotel. He's like, "You got to go over and congratulate those guys. Every time you do that, it's bad luck."
Oh man.
I went over and told him. I was like, "Stop saying that." It's really funny. I mean, I don't think this stuff personally, as far as winning and losing, it's just part of the
Right.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I kind of alluded to it last night, with Jeremy, but um, you guys have won 4 straight, and Yamaha hasn't lost a title in the Superbike class in America since 2017.
Yeah, they've lost one. Now it's two in like, I don't know, a dozen years.
Right.
So it's not the end of the world.
Right.
I know this is going to be stiff next year, and we're going to have to work that much harder and try to make sure our riders are healthy for next season. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know that Jake's got another year under his contract, and
Hmm.
Cameron's is up, but he's been working hard, and if he can get himself healthy, I'm sure Yamaha is going to take care of him.
Hmm. Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, that answers that dude's question. um, let's see here. Irate Barry, and there's a few others in the chat. David Cross. Apparently gorgeous weather the whole time, but he's expecting monsoon weather like last year.
What's that in New Jersey?
Mm-hmm.
It always works for us. I don't care.
Yeah. If it rains, sweet. Like the attack bikes work great in the rain, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Chavi should be a pretty decent wet weather rider because he's raced Europe a bunch and BSB. I mean, BSB, all you do is race in the wet there.
Right.
So most of the races are wet, and I imagine SBK is going to be a pretty decent wet weather rider. I know the BMWs usually have a pretty good wet weather setup. We'll see if the teams can do it. We have a pretty outstanding wet weather setup and wet weather electronics, so we'll see how it goes. It's almost unfair, but it's been unfair for the last 4 years with
Right.
our team, and then before that with Yamaha. So now it's a lot more fair.
Right.
I think Motor America's digging it. They would love to see somebody else win a
Yeah.
championship. They've told me so.
Well, that sucks.
No, it's what it is. It's what attracts the fans to have a little bit of change up. Change
Yeah.
of the guard. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's your program's won 4 in a row. So I guess the 5th one's just a hard,
I knew that was going to be the case because we put all the banners in the shop up like all 4 years, and we ran out of wall space. I go, there's no space for a 5th one. Walker's like, let's start on another wall. I don't know if it's going to go that way.
Oh man.
I think that was the sign. There's no more wall space.
So Lieutenant Dan has a comment. He says he has an R1. He noticed there's some slop in the swing arm that adds up over the tolerances of the shock linkage. Is there anything I could do to address this? And do you guys address this?
We use a different bearing linkage setup, and yes, we have a way to address that with the way we make the components. Like the pull rods aren't exactly a round hole, so our pull rods take into account the force, and then it becomes round under a certain amount of force. And so our bearings are kind of tight going in initially. So when even though you're always going to get a little bit of action going on, the only way to stop that is we have interference fit and everything, which that doesn't make for a very good, rolling surface. But stock, I would just probably go through and just change all the bearings and the linkage, make sure everything's tight. At the end, though, I hate saying at the end of the day because that's kind of a weird cliche, overused cliche, but overused saying. Everybody says at the end of the day. At the end of the day, but if you look at that thing, the linkage slop isn't going to make any difference unless your tire is bouncing off the ground, because the thing always has load on it, right? Mm. But I would go through, change the linkages, put everything, put some force on the thing up before you tighten all the linkage bolts, and tighten all the linkage bolts. It should be fine.
Well, thank you for that. I hope that answers dude's question. Joel wants to know what was the hardest thing to adjust for Xavi, or was it the hardest thing for him to adjust to? Do you think?
We're still trying to understand what the hardest thing is, because it seems to be, to me anyway, I wasn't working with them exclusively. I was just listening in on what John and him were going through. And at first it was turning, which the bike turned awesome at Podium Club. So it confused us a bit. Like, it turned awesome at Podium Club through the S's and all that stuff, on the gas, off the gas. And he actually wanted the front end more in that direction of Podium Club. And we ran out of adjustment and time. Mainly ran out of time, but we had more adjustment. We had one more setting we can go to, but it was already end of the day, and it was a billion degrees out there, and so was the bike. So everyone's getting a little tired, and we want to get down the road over to COTA. But then we got to COTA, and now the complaint was it doesn't turn as good as it did at COTA. And then there was some rear grip edge issues, and just a bunch of little things that add up to an uncomfortable rider. So then John and him went and tried to make the bike turn faster. But that ended up being the wrong direction. At the end, it wasn't the fact that the bike was turning. This is an area where a lot of suspension guys get confused, and we argue about this all the time. And so I sat both of them down, basically Cameron mainly, and Cameron was saying, "Yeah, you know what? With Xavi said, because Cameron didn't have a lot of time on the bike with him being sick on day one, so we kind of morphed over Xavi's setup onto his. So here, try this, because he didn't race there the year before either. Remember, he had his hand surgery, so he missed COTA last year. So he had been away from COTA for 2 years.
Right.
So we were still, it was almost like a new track. Not really a new track, but, kind of had that feeling going into it. Not a lot of time, no time there. So, and then being sick the first day, not a whole lot of laps. So we were already on our back foot through the first, getting into it. So like, all right, well, let's morph over Xavi's setup in Q2 or whatever. He said, yeah, it feels better. So we put that on. And Cameron said the bike doesn't turn good. It does. I go, explain the turn good thing. Is it a problem? What do you mean turn good? If you put more counter steer in it, will just continue the corner? No, it's not about effort. It just doesn't feel like it feels like it's going to roll off the edge of the tire. And immediately I think there's not enough trail on the bike, or there's too much mass on the bike, right? It's a feeling the rider gets like we're at the edge of the grip. So that told me, boom, we're going the wrong direction. But then what happens is, after Xavi already had a crash, he had one in qualifying. I think qualifying 2, he had a crash, and we put it back together and barely got out for his fast tire. So he already had a crash in qualifying 2, and then he had one in race 1, I believe. And so after 2 crashes, it kind of pushed you back a little bit on the braking markers and how hard you go in the corners. Any rider is going to be kind of that way unless they're a lunatic, Right. So yeah, so we're on our back foot the whole time with the strange setup and things that were maybe abnormal in the motorcycle. And so we went back to what we kind of know, and the turning was good, but by then I think it was a bit too late.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a struggle. And then the other struggle was the temperature. The hard tires it was too hot for the hard tires. We were seeing temperatures inside the rim that were hotter than the engine, if you can believe that.
Well, you said that you had a blister on your hand from touching.
Oh, that was at That was at Podium Club.
Oh,
It was
okay.
so hot, just leaning against the frame. I came in the truck. I'm like, why do I have a blister on my knuckle? I go, I leaned against the frame when I was talking to Walker. That's how hot the frame was. It caused a little burn. But anyway, it was freaking hot at Arizona. I mean, that's why people don't ride in the summer in Arizona. I don't think
Right.
the track is down for maintenance, but they basically opened it up for us. And they're building a bunch of garages out there, I guess.
Yeah.
Finally got the okay to build garages, and so some of the leveling and stuff they were doing ended up on the racetrack, and so the track was kind of dusty, dirty. They were kind enough for them to blow it off. We had one bike out there,
Right.
our bike, and so you couldn't get a whole lot of rubber on the track with one bike.
Hey, I
But
went out
anyway,
there in the car.
yeah, exactly, cleaned it off.
Yeah, like
But
my
it was
4 laps in the car. Like,
yeah, yeah, it was good though to have Chavi get some time before we showed the COTA. But I think that learned a lot about what he's looking for, and I think we can go into New Jersey with a little better mindset, and he'll have a chance to take a little break from the bike and maybe have a little better perspective on how hard he can ride that thing. A little reset, you know.
hmm,
Yeah, New Jersey's been repaved too, so that is also a hard tire track.
right.
I talked to Bobby shortly after the weekend, I think yesterday or the day before, and he said, man, they really struggled with the hard tires too. And with that, I think the heat and the hard tires didn't lend itself to the amount of grip that we needed on our bike.
Hmm.
And that being somewhat tentative on the front end, I think it just made the lap times go backwards.
And was the tire below the super hard tire not available to you guys? Is that how it worked, or?
Well, we raced Jake raced an R5 last year, and he won one race and finished second in the other when his hand went numb.
Hmm.
So, and then JD raced an R7 and got on the podium last year. So we
Right.
finished 1-3 there. Remember that? And then JD was having a good run in race two and fell down, hit Skoltz and knocked him down too. So that
Right.
was what happened last year. But we had pretty much a 1-2 combination. And this year, the R8 was just too hard for whatever reason. The heat was just up there. The track they repaved the track again, and so that the track was very black. So if you know anything about energy and heat, and you'll know that if you have a black track, the surface temp's going to come up quite a bit more.
Right.
So the surface temp was pretty high, and that translates into heat in the wheel. And there was a lot of direct sunlight, and so the wheels were really super hot, and both tires were getting very inflated. We saw the highest temperatures in the front wheel when Chavi was following those guys in the beginning portions of the race. His
Right.
front tire, they talk about it in MotoGP, where the front tire overinflates and the guys can't push. Same thing,
So
when we
you're
following.
gonna have to start getting white wheels.
And we're thinking about that actually at
Yeah.
hot track. Yeah, no, I mean that's a real thing because the temperatures were so high. We haven't seen them that high ever.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that led to some of the rotation. So for whatever reason, maybe the way our exhaust is fashioned, it's blowing a lot of heat onto the rear tire. Like the Ducati maybe has the exhaust a little different way,
Hmm.
or Beamer, but it was our tires, our rims were really really hot, highest we've ever seen.
That's
So
insane.
I got to imagine Bobby's was the same way because
Yeah.
he had some tire rotation as well.
That's I can't
It,
even
it, it was
fathom
the
that
same,
level of heat
but
on
it was
tire.
the same racetrack and the same tires for both guys. And we had one tire that was really confusing. We put for race one with Cameron. The qualifying was okay for race one. It was in the afternoon, and we put a tire on, zero grip. You can see it in the data. I think it was just sliding and spinning all over the place. Pressures looked good. Temperatures were high, zero grip. The
Hmm.
next day, we put on a scuff tire that he went a couple laps on in Q1,
Hmm.
and grip was fine. It's great. No problems with grip.
Wow.
Did race two. Grip was okay. We had to work on the steering a little bit. Went into race three. Again, zero grip. And vibration from the tire rotation. So it's just it was if I had to name the things that we could really needed to work on was at the end was probably the tires.
Yeah.
Yeah, making sure we find some grip with the rear. At the end, that's what it was in race three. We just need more rear grip. we got the front end to come in line, but the heat in our bike or whatever just didn't seem to gel.
So weird hearing this kind of banter.
Yeah, I think the R5 would have been a better tire. Strange at Ohio, the R8 was the tire to use. Yeah, but the temperature wasn't as high at Ohio. As a matter of fact, it was kind of drizzling off and on, right? We didn't even know if we're gonna be rained on or not, and we were able to get the races off. And at this track, it was just blistering hot, so I think it just shot past the range of that hard compound. At least for our bike, it didn't work out well.
So, you know, with Xavi's crash, like what
race one? No, race. I'm confused. I think it was race one.
Yeah, I think it was race one.
Yeah.
It looked like it was just it looked like it was an easy tip over, but like, was there something that he did different that lap? That was.
I think he was going with Baz then. I think he was right behind Baz, and I think he just got in there. Well, I don't think, I know. He got into turn one a little bit later on the brake, and a little bit too much pressure, brake pressure at the very end of the corner. I can even show you on data if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it.
All right. Okay.
All right. Let's kick our ugly faces off the screen.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. So, yeah, it's already.
What are we looking at here? I see the track map at the bottom right
corner
there.
Let me minimize that so you can kind of see it. So this is turn one.
Okay.
You can see and here's the brake pressure.
Yeah.
And this is all the throttle traces from, and these are speeds over here. So he gets into, and you can see on the track map here, he's getting into turn one. So he's going up the straightaway, boom, gets into turn one. And then we can blow up this little section here. And so, yeah, so he's in there, not too much faster, you know, but later. Yeah, 276.5, but you can see where he broke a little later. And then here he does all the stopping initially up the face.
Yeah.
10.6 bar. And then over here he gets 10.5 bar, but he continues the braking, you know, where he's already starting to release on the other one. And it's pretty bumpy going in there too. And he tips in, and then you can see the front wheel speed fall off and boop, go to zero.
So would you classify that as like a overloaded front?
Let me just open up some of that's GPS speed, and let me just
like, what would you call that kind of crash? Like where he went in a little deeper, but he had to brake more.
Yeah, the front was overloaded.
Overloaded the front.
Yeah. So typical front end crash. You get a little too hot, you load the front a little too hard. And I think he was using quite a bit of rear brake too, which if you use the rear brake, it tends to unload the front. But it was just a strange combination of brake and lean angle. So let's see here. We'll bring the rear brake on.
Was he trying to get in there with a different line trajectory, or?
That's a Marshall question. I didn't look at it that deep, but you can see here. Let's get rid of the front. So you can see where here he was using the rear brake before.
Yeah.
Get in, trying to get to the point, and this is where the red is where he tipped over, and then this is like a constant rear brake all the way in, and this is the crash here. And I think sets off 100 bar, you know, just poop.
So he got in there a little late and deep, and threw the anchor out, hoping for the best.
Yeah, it's typical crash, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting seeing it on the data though, because then you see a difference in the lap before, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There's people actually comment. Joel's wanting to know what does it mean to overload the front, and then he's like, does that mean the preload is too soft? I think we're talking about riding, Joel. You know, Yamaha Champion School talks about it. You know, you got to load the tire before working the tire. It's with the brake lever, right?
Yeah.
You're loading the tire with the brake lever, but if you're deeper, you're needing more lever for longer.
Yeah. So backing up a bit, load is put on by the rider. How much mass you push on the front, how much of the mass you keep on the rear, and it's a combination of brakes and springs and things like that. But just because you have less or more preload doesn't mean that you load the front any more. What it does mean is if you're running a softer spring, let's say, you might go a little deeper in the stroke, and that way the CG can go more, the center of gravity, which we call CG,
Right.
can end up more on the front tire. So then the tire ends up trying to do double duty, which it does anyway. You're asking the tire to turn and have grip and slow down at the same time. So you're trying to slow down and have the rotating, the turning grip. And so your force vector gets set in a certain direction. If you're asking it to slow down, then the tire wants to go straight. If you're asking it to turn, but the tire's going to turn, but if you're in too much speed, then you may not have enough grip to get the thing to turn if you don't load the front.
Right.
So the force is what they call mass times the form of force. Force is mass times acceleration with a tire. There's a coefficient of friction in there too. So the coefficient of friction times the force ends up with the amount of grip you have. And so, yeah, I know. All right, I can stop now.
I'm giving you the look, right?
Yeah, you're like, I'm lost.
I mean, there's that. Okay, there's a clip that's going around with the Beavis and Butthead, and he's like, when people say, they ask you if you understand, I always say yes, but I never understand.
Yeah, I've heard. I hear that a lot from the crew too. Not my crew, but other crew that I've worked with in the past. You're like da 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 da. You tell them all stuff. They go yes. I like repeat what I just said back to me, because I don't want to walk away and not be sure that you understand. And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, at least I'm honest with you. Like you start going there, I'm like, okay,
yeah. Physics, when the physics pops out, then a lot of people go, what?
Yeah.
But they should have took that physics in first year of college or high school or something,
Yeah, I was a nerd. I'm not that kind of nerd though. Like different. Even
for computers though, you should have had some physics course.
Yeah, nah, I didn't do the physics.
How the hell can you get a degree without taking physics?
Oh man, I mean, wow. Okay, thanks for calling me dumb, Richard. Appreciate that.
No, I didn't say you were dumb. I just said that the school is failing us.
Wow. Yeah.
Schools are failing us. I mean, if people don't learn physics 101, that's a big fail on the schools.
Yeah. So I'm getting some more comments coming in. The Martin's life in the hangar, dude. How do you divide your testing time between adjusting physical aspects of the bike versus the electronics?
Yeah. So, yeah, I know a funny story.
I mean,
so back in 2011, when the Kawasaki's like Gen 3 or whatever it was came out, so Kawasaki hired us to work with Eric Bostrom, and as a matter of fact, JD Beach, he was riding the super sport bike,
right?
And it was called a show they did called Road to Daytona, and we were out at Buttonwillow, and that's one electronics guy. His name is Sander Donker. He works on the Kawasaki World Superbike team now.
Yeah,
he's been around. He's been in MotoGP and stuff like that. He was with HRC and Torrance for a bit. He helped us out for that little stint there. Nice guy. And anyway, so Eric was so particular about the suspensions. Just kept going round and round and round and round, and a little this, a little that. Doesn't feel quite right now. We had a suspension guy, and Sander finally looks at me and goes, "When are you guys going to stop playing with the springy thingies so I can do my work?" They always call them springy thingies.
The springy thingies.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. But so anyway, so with ours, we do a test program where we have chassis-related test items, let's say, and then electronics-related test items. They happen simultaneously. So we have to work real close to make sure that the chassis isn't doing the work, and the electronics is there. We're not calling something good when it's not electronics related, let's say, or chassis related. For instance, when we did a new swing arm, we looked at acceleration. So the electronics guy would look and say, yeah, no, for sure the bike was accelerating better with this particular swing arm versus the last one. And the riders may go, I don't know. But then you look at the data and you go, yeah, the bike, on the x-axis acceleration is better. That means we're actually, whatever it is, whether it's the length, the flex in the swing arm, or whatever, you'll be able to see it in the data. So it all works simultaneously, to answer the question.
Everything works simultaneously. Okay.
Yeah, you have to. It's all a bunch of pieces. The puzzle. You hear all that nonsense with Bike Week again, Bike Night.
Oh yeah. I don't hear it as bad. I just heard a little rumble, and that's it.
Yeah.
You got your noise cancellation mic now, or whatever.
AirPods.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That Lieutenant Dan Has Legs guy wants to know what your main considerations are, when you're compromising between wheelbase and gearing. Do you get the wheelbase you want and then just deal with the gearing required to make the bike feel right?
Yes and no. Sometimes, like on a superbike, you can't compromise gearing because you're using every little bit, especially when you're racing against the BMW and the Ducati, who have a power advantage. So we have to make sure that that we use every bit of torque that we have available when it's available. At the same time, the wheelbase is very critical for a couple things: flex, for edge grip, and also acceleration, anti-wheelie character. So if you have a bunch of wheelie, you have to take torque away. Whether it's the rider doing it with his hand, which is usually inconsistent, or electronics doing it by predictive measures, looking at the roll rate of the chassis and the suspension pop position and things like that, and calling for a certain amount of cut. So you're always killing some torque on these big bikes, and so we're always working towards, okay, what's the best wheelbase we can get for the torque versus grip and all the other things that make it happen, and gearbox. So a lot of the top teams have this item called a half link. So it's basically a link that's only half of a link. It's a billet machine piece, which is kind of a zigzag shaped, and it's a funny looking thing. But that helps you get the wheelbase where you want it between different gearing options. So you don't have to push the thing all the way up or all the way back to get the gearing you want. Now, with that said, we were in 2016 when we helped Aaron secure that Superstock championship.
Yeah.
We ran the bike, I think it was 1539 or 1540 everywhere. I used because it was Superstock, and back then the competition wasn't so high, I guess you can call it. You only had Yoshimura and factory Yamaha, and everybody else was kind of Superstock level, or very not competitive Superbike level. So we were able to put them on the podium a few times with a Superstock bike, and we ran the gearing basically the same, because the R1, you're limited on wheelbase with the swing arm back then,
right?
And you couldn't make a custom swing arm, so we ran the thing all the way long for the handling and for the acceleration, and then we just adjusted the torque from corner to corner. Or overall based on whatever electronics we had. And back then, I think it was flash tune something or another. And we were working on corner strategies with him, Superstock. We were able to do that at the time. And so we just did everything by torque adjustments. So this corner needs a little more power. It's the first gear corner, or it needs a little less power. We would do that, and we kept the wheelbase same. And back in the day when they had selective gearboxes, a lot of the teams would run the same exact final drive because the chassis worked good, and they would change internal ratios.
Right.
So that was your gearing change. So that didn't change your wheelbase and your final drive and the way the torque applied to the chassis and your anti-squat and all those things we talk about a lot.
Right. ED wants to know that if you went back to COTA with the same conditions, would there be a setup change that you guys would make to make more grip, or is this more like a pressure based?
No, there'd be some different things we would do. We take the data that we learned along with the data we had from the previous year, which we ran in R5 mostly, and then look at our combination spring wheelbase, all those kinds of things, and center of gravity of the bike, and see if we can make a better use of the limited grip we had.
Okay. Yeah. And then
it might require a wholesale change in the chassis, which we're going to look at. this
A
winter.
wholesale change in the chassis.
Yeah. In other words, moving the center of gravity of the chassis quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does one accomplish that?
Changing the mass. Like right now, we have a mass under the bike that we can move.
Mm.
Or we could change the fuel tank and the fuel position, or we can put mass under the tail if we wanted to, or mass over the nose. So as long as your bike is at legal weight, you can put the mass wherever you want. If we try to make the bike a little under, you'll move the mass around.
Mm. Okay.
So that's something we'll be looking at this winter. And there's other things that we're going to be applying too, because every time you have, I wouldn't say the weekend was tough just because of a chassis setup. I think we have a rider that's injured, and we have a rider that's still getting used to the bike, so it wasn't really conducive to having a good result.
Yeah. Talking about some of the other teams out there, I mean, obviously, SDK got his first win of the season.
Yeah, good for him.
You know, I just
he's
curious.
He's riding really good, very impressive.
Like, what are you thinking of that? How do you think of that Top Pro program? They look like they're going all right. You know.
Yeah, nice guy. Nice guy. The owners really always, or one of the owners, I guess. I don't know.
Alex.
Yeah, always been very, cordial and nice, and nothing but good stuff to say about those guys.
Yeah, it's cool to see a strong effort come out.
Yeah.
It's always nice to see those strong efforts where they focus on the racing forward.
They're very motivated Floridians.
Motivated Floridians.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they got their all into it,
Oh yeah, 100%.
Which is pretty good.
And then what are your thoughts on the Bobier guy's crazy qualifying time?
Dude, that's just Cameron. I mean, he qualified on pole. I mean, it's all Cameron, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because JD's trying, but he's not getting there on the same motorcycle.
At COTA.
And yeah, I guarantee JD's on the same motorcycle. Cameron has this natural ability to I mean, I know I worked with him for a year, and I knew he was going to do good stuff in Moto 2, but he had to adjust his riding style. And I mean, if you recall, he was on pole there in Moto 2.
Right.
He just for whatever reason, that team wasn't the top team in the paddock, and they were still learning, I think. From the outside looking in, that's what it seemed. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right.
But, I think that he just didn't have a lot of great luck, and he didn't have a lot of great luck here when he got on the BMW either, right?
Right.
Last year or this year. And so that kind of kept the championship away from him. But I think that dude is perfectly capable of winning a championship on just about any motorcycle. I think he knows how to use a front tire. He knows how to apply the throttle. Talked to him a bit at the airport. We talked about his bike a little bit, and it's a difficult bike to find the perfect window.
Right.
The window is very, very small, and you can see it from the outside looking in. When they're on, they're on. When they're off, they're off. So where the Yamaha's got a pretty large window, that's why sometimes we're a little shocked if we have a shit result.
Right.
And because it's very forgiving. And so I think that's been our strength, and that's been their weakness, but they seem to have been able to find that window and try to stay within it. And obviously the engine's fast, so if you complement that. Their electronics are difficult compared to what we have. Ours are much more adjustable. And so those are their weaknesses. Those are our strengths. But they seem to be doing a really great job. And I think Cameron's the right guy. I think he can get it done. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't win a championship already.
He's got he's got one of those rare abilities, like you said, to just throw down a ridiculously fast time. Unlike when our guy, when our guys are on, like when Jake's on, like Jake goes and just lives and he camps an RV in the time. Those guys will be at a certain time and then throw down. The other guy that I think of that can do that kind of one lap insanity is Bobby Fong, right? Like we've seen that dude throw down. We're like, what?
Bobby's a good qualifier too. For whatever reason, really weak in the wet, and actually Cameron Bobier is somewhat weak in the wet too. Up until when he rode our bike, he was pretty good.
Right.
but I haven't seen him really perform great in the wet. I don't remember any Moto2 races in the wet yet. I think he went pretty decent in the wet in Moto2. So, but again, last year, I don't remember. I think he was out last year, right, when we were in New Jersey. So it'd be interesting to see him at New Jersey in the wet.
So, Ed is talking about the chain link thing, and it's funny you mentioned it because I sent you a picture, a screenshot or something from the Yamaha World Superbike team, or was it World Superbike? Yeah,
World Superbike team. Yeah.
I was like, hey, dude, are we using these half links? And you're like, yeah, dumbass, like we use them.
Yeah, they're only good for about 900K, about that.
Okay.
So we mark them, mileage them. They're not super expensive, but they're impossible to get.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not something you're making?
No. DID is our chain company, and so they supply it.
Okay.
And yeah, outstanding chain. And those chains are just bulletproof. But yeah, so you got to order it a bunch in advance, and we have to buy it just like anybody else. And not the chains, obviously the suppliers for chains, but those half links are kind of a special piece. It's been a Ducati thing for a long time because they have that big drum rotating thing, that stupid single-sided thing, which seems to work right now.
Apparently they're getting rid of it though, right?
Yeah, they are finally. I mean, I think it's silly. If they had no single-sided swing arm rule, I'm sure those guys just got rid of that thing a long time ago. But the drum rotates, the adjuster, and then the bike goes up and down. Then you got to change the ride height if you want to keep it the same, or you got to deal with it. And so the way they keep that thing from rotating a bunch from this track to that track is by using a half link, try to get in the same range. It's been a Ducati thing forever.
So Brian Green's got a good question because you and I talk about this a lot. He's talking about the wheelbase of the Superbike, and how much longer do you think the Superbike is versus Stalker? And then and he's saying that he notices the GP bikes seem to get longer every year. Like we talked about this. I was thinking about making a T-shirt about it, about how you're trying to make drag bikes turn. So
yeah, it's a lot longer than stock.
Dude, it is.
It's a lot.
Like we don't have a number, right?
I can't give a number, but it's just say it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, put it to you this way, dude. Like when I put the Stalker in the back of my truck, I can pretty much close the tailgate. And with the Attack Superbike in my truck, I can't close the tailgate because the rear wheel's on it.
The rear wheel's hanging off the end of the tailgate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's our work tables
scientific measurements,
Yeah, our work tables are getting too short.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to make some, like flip up things to the work table. I mean, it's just the way it is. If you look at that Ducati, I saw it roll by, and I go, man, that swing arm is really long.
Yeah.
People, you look at the FBF paint job. I didn't even see the FBF paint job when it rolls by. I see the swing arm, and I see the engine, I see the forks, I see all those things. Yeah. So I was looking at Ducati, I go, man, that swing arm's really long. But that's kind of the trend. That's where it's going. It does have some negatives. I guess Johnny Ray, and trying to find a comfort zone with his, they end up shortening his swing arm, or shortening his setting anyway. And he seemed to be happier with that. I don't know if that's a placebo or if that's actually real. You don't know. Sometimes you have to just change something on a motorcycle, get some feeling back for the guy.
Yeah.
So I just, I don't know exactly what that team is doing. I just know what I hear from the peripheries.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we've gone back and forth with some of the settings. In the wet, we have a completely different length motorcycle versus the dry. So yeah, that's just the trend. And of course, the power and the grip as it increases, bike has to be longer, just like a drag bike.
Yeah, Joel actually is commenting about the long bike too, talking about how Hayden Gillum was on our show, the Weekend Hangover, I don't know, right after he did the World Superbike thing. And he was talking about how his one-off ride, his World Superbike was quite a bit different than his Moto America bike.
Yeah, it was too long.
He said it was lower and longer. And Joel wants to know if there's any difference between Moto America and Superbike in comparison. But the thing is, Joel, like Hayden Gillum's bikes that he rides here are basically stock 1000 bike. They're stockers.
Yeah.
And then he went over to World Superbike and raced the proper World Superbike Honda. So,
Well, I think some people are stuck in old Dunlop land. So one of the things that happened when Dunlop went to the newer tires, the R
mhm.
series tires, instead of the number tires like the 129 and the all those other ones, 2662 and all those other weird super soft and medium pluses and all that terminology. When they went to the R0, R1, R3, R5, R7, when they went to those, that tire changed,
Hmm.
and it I think it bridged the gap, not completely, but closer to the Dunlop to the Pirelli. So in World Tour like that, Pirelli is pretty outstanding as far as the tire you can lean against. They've made a big step compared to where we were, let's say in 2006 and 7 when we were running Pirellis on our Kawasaki's. It's quite a bit of a leap forward on tires. I wouldn't say it was a leap; it was just the evolution over the years. And
Right.
so what happens is the guy's going to lean on the front end and squeeze the front end down into the corner to get to the apex. And I think Hayden probably is not used to riding that way because he's
Right.
probably stuck a little bit in old Dunlop land. But the new Dunlops, you can still do a lot of that, and that's where, unfortunately, that's where Cambobi is finding his lap time
Right.
because he knows how to work that front tire. You give him a better front tire, he's going to go faster. And so we kind of knew that once these guys start figuring out this front tire, that we'd have to work a lot harder.
I'm being asked by Cody Kreger like how the lap times compared from our riders last year versus this year, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, last year's were a little bit quicker.
Yeah, Jake did eights.
Yeah.
We were kind of stuck on the nines.
Right. Yeah, and then
I
let's
think
see.
I think even JD did a high eight last year. I don't think we barely popped the nines.
And then Irate Barry, he's talking about how privateer racing keeps him entertained. He loves how the factories and the support teams, but it's rad to see someone just jump in the deep end and say, fuck it, let's go racing. I suspect he's referring to Superbike Unlimited's effort at COTA this past weekend.
Oh, Freddie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's got a pretty good program. I mean,
Yeah.
he's again is jumping in the deep end, and then he had what's his name riding it, Ben. Yeah, he had Ben riding it, and yeah, I think he had some issues. I think he had boots were not well insulated or something, and his feet got all burned.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hot out there; it was just ridiculous. The track temp and everything was hot. There's no cool anywhere.
I mean, I did a Toyota 200 race years ago, and my right pinky toe was numb for like 2 months afterwards.
Yeah, I remember back in the old days at racing up at Big Willow on my FCR 1000 or whatever it was, and your foot would almost be on the pipe.
Yes.
And sometimes it was so hot out there in the middle of the desert that you'd have to hang your foot off the right side. Sometimes get some coolness before you went into turn 2. Had to actually put your foot on the peg. So
Yeah.
but yeah, COTA was kind of like that. I guess he switched boots to Alpine Stars and it was fine. But by then his feet were already all burned.
Yeah, the Alpine Star boots have that inner liner booty thing that you put on first, and
yeah, that probably
like
just
one
gave you a
layer.
little thermal barrier. Whenever you have some type of material with a little air gap or they're not touching directly all the way around, you don't get that. That inner liner thing too is probably made out of some kind of plastic, right?
Right.
So it probably has a little bit better thermal protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that helped him out. But yeah, they didn't struggle. I don't think too bad. I mean, their bike was good. There's nobody riding it for New Jersey though, unfortunately. I told him to hook up with Hayes because Hayes still wants to ride. But so I don't know how that might go. Told Freddie that. Yeah, right. Unfortunately, it sounds like the wrench guy's done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
I guess they announced it that he's pulling out. So Bobby'd be looking for a ride too. I think as far as Superbike goes, probably still do baggers and all that stuff. But he's a really good rider. He should be on everybody's list. I mean, he's leading the championship. He's got wins. He's rides good. He's a fun guy to be with. So he should be on everybody's list.
Did you catch any of the other racing? I know that your shop builds an engine for one of the competitors in that other class.
Yeah, we do all the track engines, and as a matter of fact, we're doing one now for. They're shipping it back, so we'll do one and send it over to New Jersey, so they can put it in for the last round. But yeah, I mean, I know those guys, like Ben Speed keeps complaining our R6 engines are too fast or whatever. They've taken them apart. There's not much to them other than the cylinder head, like we
Right.
do here. But yeah, so yeah, we've been happy to help them. I mean, Matt's riding really good. The team's functioning well, and they're getting results. You know, he had a crash early on, kind of strange.
Yeah.
You know, kind of put him back in the championship, and then PJ crashed, which put Matt back ahead in the championship. You know, like he didn't put him back, but it put him in an uncomfortable spot where he had to go and beat PJ for the rest of them, kind of thing. But now
What?
Matt,
I
I
think
think he has to finish.
yeah.
You know, I think he's pretty set unless something stupid happens.
Right.
Yeah, I think he has to finish 3 or 4 positions back behind PJ in the first race and win the championship, which is great. Great for Yamaha, great for Strack team. I know they
Yeah.
want to get it done, and great for Matt. He hasn't won that much in a while. You know,
It's
Superbike is
pretty
kind of rough on
cool.
him.
It's pretty cool to see Matt consistently a threat to win every weekend.
Yeah,
And
he does lose. He does lose his shit every now and then.
he
You
does.
know, if
But
I was
you're
working with him,
winning.
yeah, all that stuff. You know, if I was working with him, I'd tell him calm down, mate, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But usually, we've talked about it before. Like usually, it used to be well known, the legend of the mid-season slump kind of thing, and I didn't
yeah.
see that this year. You know,
You know, the West B team, you know, a bunch of good guys. Ed from the West B team is over at with Strack. So Strack, Ed, and Matt went to Strack. So that was kind of a good call because
yeah,
now Matt knows a guy who knows a guy, you know, and he can get to a setup pretty fast.
right.
And it's a simple bike, but they did struggle a little bit. You know, we tried to help them on the West V bike, but there was a little bit of irregularities on the team. I guess didn't have really great direction at times. For the
Hmm.
most part, they had a really great team, but sometimes they'd lose their way a little bit, and we'd have to go in and maybe give them a little analysis. And back then, they were our competitors, so I don't know if they just didn't trust what we were telling them, you know. But I think it's a different ball game now since we're helping those part of that team in another team. So I think there's a lot more trust and faith going on there.
Have you heard anything about 2025 with regards to that team? Are they gonna stay in Super Sport? Are they gonna go to Superbike? Like, what?
Of course, I've heard something.
Oh, okay. So,
until
you're
until
willing
they
to
announce
speak
it.
about that you're willing to speak
No,
about
I'm
or
not the guy
authorized to
that.
speak about.
No, I'm not the guy that goes, oh, blah 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 blah. So and so told me. Look at this
Right.
text message I got from him. Ooh,
Yeah.
no, that's not me.
Yeah.
If someone's got a program going, I don't want to be the guy who goes and spills the beans and they're mad at me
Right.
and maybe they don't get the sponsor they wanted because it didn't get released properly. I don't want to be the guy
Mm.
throwing a wrench in the works. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, even though we're in this tiny little business like this big and we're trying to keep secrets, and everyone knows everyone. But
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy
Then when the news
that
comes out, everybody knew already the whole time.
yeah, at least within our circle, I guess. But some
Yes.
people are like, oh wow, I didn't know that. But I don't want to be the guy that gives that up. They can figure out their deal, they get their deal worked out, they make their announcement, and then we're here to support if they need it.
So what are your what's your master plan for Jersey, man? Like you bring in fancy parts? What do what are you doing?
Uh,
Oh man. Okay.
it's that kind of year.
Man.
Well, it's Tom Halverson's last road race.
No shit.
He's
Man.
retiring in
No, I'm
March.
bummed I'm gonna
Yeah,
miss it. I'm gonna be pedaling though, so
yeah. I think we're gonna do a little something for him.
you have to. You have to.
Yeah, I don't know. Bucket over the head, dinner. I haven't decided yet.
Bucket over the head for
You have
Tom?
water. Yeah,
I
something.
don't know, man. It's probably gonna be
Yeah,
raining buckets, right? I mean, it's Jersey.
yeah. So he'll be wet anyway. If I was
What's the deal
if I
with
was ready to,
What's the deal with Moto America scheduling races in places where they know it's going to be hot as balls or raining, like every year?
Probably the only dates they can get.
That's true. That's true. I mean,
all the good dates are eating up real series.
a lot of people talk
Actually,
about that.
I say that in jest because I was leaving the garage one day and it was about 6 o'clock. So I saw Chuck Axel and he was walking past. I'm like, I looked down the row of garages and there's like a semi almost in front of every garage all the way down, and then we had some toter homes and stuff like that at the very end. And I go, holy shit, this looks like a MotoGP weekend. Like every single garage is occupied, and they had more in the paddock.
Yeah.
So I told Chuck, I said, dude, you guys have some really great turnout. I mean, this is pretty amazing. Every single garage is full. So people say that, oh, the competitors aren't there and stuff. That's all BS. Now maybe some people are just coming to COTA because of the significance of that track, and everybody wants to be at a GP track or the Good State or something like that. It's a high-speed track. It's actually a very difficult track for a motorcycle. I mean, it's great for Formula One, but it's an odd track. Since day one, it isn't one of those places where you find rhythm. It's first gear corners.
Dude,
they're odd to tighten up. Yeah, it's a difficult non-rhythmic track. And the guys are running up front either have a lot of time there or they just have that talent.
Yeah. Well, I have neither of those things. But I do remember going there.
This is where we agree.
Thanks. Richard Stanboli.
Bully.
Yeah, so I mean, you can remember I was there a couple months ago, and I texted you and I was like, "Bro, what the fuck is this place, dude?"
Yeah. I always refer to Elaine from Seinfeld dancing.
Okay, that was me on track, dude, for sure.
Yeah, nothing is in rhythm.
Yeah,
that's COTA.
But then, like, once you kind of get going, it's like, okay, then
figure
you
out the
start having
flow.
fun.
Yeah.
But man, to get there, it was like those super long sweeping turns that looked similar on the approach, but they were completely different. And then the two uphill right-hander things at the top of in the S's, there was two of them, and I'm, when you're learning the track, I'm like, fuck, which hill am I on?
Yeah, or the first gear corners are like this, where you're rolling over the F1 car bumps.
Yes.
All of that.
Yeah. So anyway,
or a fast sweeper where you get a bunch of chatter because F1 cars put a bunch of rollers there because they go through there flat out. They just back to full throttle.
Oh man.
Yeah, it tears up the pavement there, and then that pavement's constantly changing because it's built on sand.
Oh, is it?
Every year you show up, the bumps are in different locations, and they're always repaving it. But man, like I said, other than the pretty fantastic, like I said, competitor turnout, and man, they are building a lot of stuff there at COTA.
Yeah, roller coasters and shit.
Roller coasters and I mean they have concerts there all the time, and they must be doing something right.
Yeah,
because they're sinking a bunch of money in that place.
What do you think of the new schedule updates and the missing certain track and bringing back another one?
Brainerd and the VIR.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, I hate to say, oh, the VIR has always been good to us. The Yamaha track, well, we'll probably get smashed there too. Who knows?
Wow.
I mean, open mouth and search.
You don't use the terms hopefully, right?
No, I hate that term.
Yeah.
Right. There's no such thing as hope. You either do your job or you don't.
So Brainerd's off the schedule for next year. How do you feel about that?
That's Bobby. Because he loves Brainerd, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't care. Brainerd's just a long drive from the airport. Yeah. So I don't care. VIR is a long drive from the airport too.
Yeah.
It's the same drive, basically.
Are there any other tracks that you think should be on the tour? Like Irate Barry is saying Utah. Like that track's always cool, the perimeter at Utah.
Yeah, it's a good track. I don't know why. That place always seems like we're doing a test, an open test. There's never any fans there, zero. The first few years it was pretty good. And then after that, it just nobody shows up.
Yeah.
And cool track though. The one time they did just the first part of the track, that was dumb.
Yeah,
Really
the
dumb.
loop. Yeah.
Yeah, that stupid little loop. I
The
hated that. I
perimeter
thought,
at Utah is legit though, right? I mean,
I mean,
it's
that was like going to a supermoto race. I mean, it was dumb. But the perimeter track is really good.
yeah, the club that races there races the perimeter track, I think, for the most part. I think
Yeah,
they only do I'm sorry, the loops for the most part, and then the perimeter is like once a
yeah,
year kind of thing.
yeah. I think the a lot of the teams now are not based in on the West Coast.
Right.
I think we're one of the few teams. ADR is based on the West Coast. We're based on the West Coast. A lot of teams are not based on the West Coast anymore. Like a lot of the manufacturers. I mean, we're close to Yamaha, and so we're like the official team. I don't think you can call us a factory team, but we build the bikes in house. We don't get bikes from Japan.
Right.
So, but we're as close as we can get, I guess, to a factory team because they take care of the riders and we share responsibilities in a lot of areas. Uh, but like everybody else on the is on the East Coast for the most part.
Yeah.
And so I think for them to go to Utah and Ridge and all that stuff, I think it's an effort. But
Yeah, kind of like when it was the
yeah,
opposite when most of the a lot of the rounds were on the East Coast and most of the teams are West Coast based, right?
yeah. But those West Coast teams had money
Oh, well,
because
there's that. There is that.
it was Yoshimura and it was Yamaha in-house team and it was
Factory Honda.
HRC Honda. So to them, it didn't matter. They
Right.
just sent the semi that direction and paid the gas bill.
Well, one of the tracks that got repaved this year that's been off the schedule for a minute, Sears Point or Sonoma or whatever they call it now, right?
I don't know if we can race there anymore. I think that track is just not quite safe enough. You can't really race it in the wet.
Okay.
I think we've outgrown that track, and it was always really sketchy in the wet. You can never race there in the wet. Period. I know that the locals do, but man, they changed the track a
Do
bunch of
they?
times. I thought they did.
I don't think they do, man.
They changed the track to get it off the drag strip, which was a big plus.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, over there, up in the turn 5, 6, whatever it is, you go up over that rise where Hayes high-sided our bike once and ended up in the hay bales at the time or whatever the heck they had. I mean, you got a pretty damn solid concussion there. I mean, that really messed him up for a long time. I mean, people have been killed that track.
Oh, and paralyzed.
Yeah, I mean, Haskovic.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy, the Willow guy that got killed there?
Yeah. Got killed. I remember
Tall, thin guy. Used to race at Willow Springs all the time. I can't remember what his name is. Tip of my tongue.
I remember the brothers. The brothers just raced 600s at Willow, and one of the brothers got Lasco. Bob and Steve Lasco.
Yeah, I could, if I had a list.
Why do I remember that? I have no idea because I don't remember yesterday.
I could probably come up with that name, but it was a Willow Springs guy that ended up getting killed there. So anyway, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
I think we've outgrown that track. Yeah, Utah's a good track. I would like to go back there. John's talking about eventually having him go to Podium Club.
Yeah.
That's a really nice track. And I think we can have some pretty good competition there. It's a really good layout, 1st through 6th, with a lot of technical stuff, a lot of grip.
A lot of hotels and crap in the local area too. So
yeah, there's the way to support the people showing up. They just need a little more infrastructure, like a bathroom, at least one.
Yeah, yeah.
Not the desert.
I just made a goofy. I've been doing these like little story time videos, and like sharing memories, like in 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, something like that, about the past. And I just did one about the Porta bathroom thing situation at Chuckwalla when it first opened, and how we used to call it Doo-Doo Mountain.
Yeah. Oh, that little box that they had in the middle of the track, probably still there.
Yeah. No, it's gone.
Finally.
They have actual bathrooms, and they've had actual bathrooms.
No, I know. When they built the bathrooms, it was like, oh, that's a good step.
Yeah.
But Podium Club be fun. I think they can have. It's Arizona, right? So maybe we can have a machine gun range. Sell tickets.
Oh.
I think a lot of the riders and fans be into that. That'd be an attraction.
Yeah, maybe the Podium Club, the Podium Club guy will get it done. That'd be great.
Yeah, just tell them to go out and buy like 500 AR-15s and not get arrested by the ATF. Tell us all for a range.
Yeah, just Isn't there like, yeah, you could spread out the purchase amongst the staff, to where it doesn't look weird, right?
I mean, the owner of that property. I mean, if that stuff goes back like miles, right, or
Oh
a
yeah,
couple
dude.
miles or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
it's
It's
he owns all that property. Enough to put a proper rifle range there.
yeah. I mean, yeah. That sounds like a great time, dude. Like, hopefully the
Yeah,
Podium Club guys are listening to this. Oh
don't know.
man. All right, man. Well, I think that's about a wrap, dude. Thanks for talking to me. And shit, man. Hope you guys get back to the smashing people's faces ways at Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, another track, another day, reset and go again.
Yeah. And then will we ever get a build breakdown on the GP bike? Yeah, we will eventually. I got to do this ride first, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Have
I'm
fun riding from San Francisco to wherever.
Santa Monica. Yeah, I'm leaving on Friday, so we're going to go up to
So
San
you're going from one woke community to another.
Am I in a woke community here? I don't know if I'm
No,
living
I
in
mean
it.
San
No.
Francisco to
Oh yeah,
Santa
yes.
Monica.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But I have to pedal through the scenery to get there.
Yeah, you got to pedal through some. You got to get some traction off all that homeless doo doo before you get down to
Oh
the
my
next
goodness.
bastion of homeless doo doo in Santa Monica.
Yeah, so we're leaving on Friday.
Have you been to the park in Santa Monica lately? I was there like a year ago,
I
a
mean,
couple
I
years
was
ago.
there. I was at the Santa Monica Pier at the finish line last year of the tour.
Yeah, but have you been in that park right above it, like next to it? The one
It's
that's up
been a
top.
it's been a
My
minute.
my dad used to take us there all the time,
Yeah,
and I went there like 2 years ago. It is shocking.
really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really scared of most people, but that place, if you were a tourist, I think you'd be scared.
Yeah. I mean, last year on the tour, before the start of the tour, I hung out at a friend's house, and they were telling me about how their friends from Europe had come out, and they flew in, they had all their shit in the rental car, and they're like, "Oh, let's go take our little selfie at the Golden Gate Bridge." So they go, they stop, they take their selfie. They're
Mm-hmm.
out of their car for not even 10 minutes. They come back, all their luggage is gone, their passports are gone, their money is gone, like everything they had was gone within 10 minutes. It's like, welcome to America. um yeah, so we're renting a car. We're gonna drive straight to the hotel, dump our stuff, and then dump the rental car at the airport, and then Saturday morning we hit the
Bicycle.
road, you know.
Sounds like a
So
good time. I wish I had that kind of time. That's the biggest problem, time.
well, it's like I took a week's vacation, but then I'm on vacation all the time right now, so there's that.
Yeah, so you still don't have a job. Anybody give this guy an IT job or what?
Oh my god.
But he has to have a job for you somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been looking. I've been kind of vacationing for the last 3 weeks or something, but when I get back from the ride, I got to like buckle down and be a grown up for a second. So,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
going to
sure
I'm going to enjoy this
your
time.
wife will probably your wife will probably appreciate that.
Yeah, that yeah, she's probably done with me and being at home all the time. So, yeah. Anyway.
Well, cool, man.
Yeah, well, if you thank you all for watching this thing, and if you're still connected, there's a link in the description of the video to the charity ride. So if you want to donate, please click that link and all that. Share, like, subscribe, all that, mash all the button stuff, and we'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Later.